the death of Steve Jobs. He first entered our lives more than 30 years ago after starting Apple Computers with Steve Wozniak.
That two-man company is now the most valuable in the world. CBS News business and economics correspondent Rebecca Jarvis is here with a look at how Apple grew. And it just, I mean, there aren't even words to describe the growth of this company, especially in the last few years.
Yeah, especially in the last decade. It's been exponential. And if you go all the way back to when that first Macintosh computer debuted in January of 1984, this was a little company by comparison to what it is today. A $3.50 stock. All of a sudden, Jobs gets fired. A year later, 1985, this stock plummets to $1.71. This is after a little internal coup. There were some internal politics taking place in the company. Jobs returns to the company in December of 1996, rather. The stock is a $5 stock. All of a sudden, you fast forward about 5 more years, the stock goes up to $11. That's when the PowerBook debuts in January of 2001. Then iTunes comes along. We all know iTunes. It becomes synonymous with music. It becomes synonymous with the way Americans and people around the world buy their music. Apple shares get up to $13.50. The iPod debuts a few years later, or rather a few weeks later, in 2003. $22.50 is the stock. The iPhone comes along in 2007. This is where things get really heated. $122 for a share of Apple in June of 2007 because of that iPhone. Then the iPad. $260 rather is where Apple stock goes. And then we do have today, obviously, Jobs passing $378 for a share of Apple stock. You just see these last 10 years, because of this man's vision, the stock has gone exponential.
And this, talking about a job creator too, because not just at Apple, I mean, the entire landscape as a whole benefited from his innovations.
Well, yeah, and you look at all of these tech companies. I mean, every single company out there right now is utilizing on some level the Apple platform. They're utilizing the iPhone platform. They're utilizing iTunes. From Amazon to Google, they have all been able to benefit from what he has set in place, the thing he has set in motion.
He changed so much, not just of business, of course, but of the way that we live our lives. And joining us more with a little bit on both those fronts is Andy Serwer, who's managing editor of Fortune magazine. You've written extensively about Steve Jobs, about Apple. You've also been on the receiving end of his phone calls, which could sometimes go either way, but probably spoke a lot to the type of businessman and innovator that he was.
Well, he's a creative genius, of course, as we've been talking about all morning, but he was also a micromanager, and he liked to control his press. So he would reach out to us from time to time and make it very clear on where he stood on things. But more than that, he did change the way we lived our lives. He revolutionized so many businesses, not only computing, but also the music business, the telephony business, telephones, the movie business with Pixar, retailing with the stores, product design, advertising, management meetings. Think about his presentations. We're seeing one right here. I mean, you know, this was something that had never been done before, but mostly he brought technology to the people, to consumers, before technology used to be something in black boxes and, you know, mainframe computers or boring desktops. Now it's been a revolution.
And the thing that was so amazing is to launch an idea like this, and then in the subsequent days to have that idea all over the world and working. Because I think for the layman, you sit back and you think of some of the ideas and some of the technology, and you wonder, how in the world can human beings accomplish this? And that's what he was able to do. I
mean, an amazing, you know, execution. You're right, Chris. To be able to have a company that size keep a product secret, announce it, and then have it all over the country in one day like that, available and working seamlessly. All these products introduced, connected to the iTunes store, for instance, the software working without a flaw. Just a tremendous ability of a company to execute on all levels.
And also to make you want something that you had no idea you would ever want. I think he said that at one point. Yeah, we make the products that consumers don't even know that they want.
And just to have the Jobs stamp of approval, too, people look at Steve Jobs and they look at Apple, and it doesn't matter what the competition is. I mean, there are people who will literally buy something because it came from Apple, because it came from Steve Jobs, and he built that whole essence over 30 years.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also, to your point, Chris, when you're talking about employment, jobs being such an important issue today, all the jobs at Apple, but also all the jobs in terms of app creators for all you college students out there. One of the hottest jobs, and there's not enough people out there doing that right now. If you're interested in studying that kind of thing in school, you will get a job out of college, I guarantee you.
And you talk about the CEO that did everything. Not only did he come up with the ideas, but also the visual aspect, which was so important to him, the look, fonts, and different type, and just the, remember when the computers came out, there were the different colors, like we mentioned, and the different color iPods. And I mean, he played, there was so many different things that he had his hands on.
Taste was so important, right, Rebecca? I mean, you talk about that. That was as big as insult to a competitor. They have no taste, bad taste. But, you know, that really meant the look of all these products and how they worked. And they had to work without a manual. Remember, you had to read a manual to use technology products? No more. Now you have Apple products, and you plug them in, and they work. You don't have to read a manual to figure them out.
Yeah, all about feel.
Pretty impressive stuff. Andy, great to have you with us this morning.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in. Rebecca, thanks.